First, the countdown is on with just hours to go until we usher in a brand new year, but it's already 2015 in some parts of the world. The giant clock on Auckland's landmark Sky Tower counted down the seconds until 2015, followed by a huge fireworks display launching from the tower right at the stroke of midnight. Hundreds of thousands of people turned out to celebrate despite the wet weather. In fact, many of them started partying in Auckland at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. This is Sydney, Australia's display, which happened just about half an hour ago. More than 1.5 million people crowded along the shores of the city's famed harbour to watch the vivid eruption of light over the harbour bridge and the iconic Sydney Opera House. Here in North America, Times Square's iconic New Year's Eve ball is ready for its moment in the spotlight. The 12-foot, 12,000-pound ball has been spruced up. It's polished and tested to make sure that everything is a go for tonight. Security is going to be tight in Times Square with heavily armed counter-terrorism teams, bomb-sniffing dogs, rooftop patrols, even NYPD helicopters as well. Now, if you're staying in tonight, you can watch the festivities from the comfort of your very own home. Dick Clark's Rockin' New Year's Eve with Ryan Seacrest live from Times Square kicks off at 8 o'clock right here on City, featuring performances from Taylor Swift, Elton John, even Nick Jonas. Here in Vancouver, police are getting ready for one of their busiest nights of the year. The main problems officers will be dealing with tonight usually involve alcohol, along with disturbances and noisy complaints as well, noisy party complaints. Extra patrols will be focusing their attention on the downtown core around the Granville Entertainment District. Partygoers are being reminded that $230 fines will be handed out tonight to anyone caught drinking alcohol in public.
We'll have extra officers on patrol dealing with the additional call load. We'll have officers at counterattack locations stopping impaired drivers. We'll have officers in the downtown core, especially along the entertainment district, to deal with usually alcohol-related issues as they arise.
There's no large free public event in Vancouver this year. Organizers of a planned fireworks display had to cancel at the last minute because of a lack of funding. Well, a Christmas tree is being blamed for a house fire in Delta last night. Firefighters were called to a home on Ladner Trunk Road and Harvest Drive at around 10:45 last night. Everyone got out of the home safely, but the house is described as a total loss. More than 20 firefighters remained on scene for several hours to investigate and put out hot spots. A pedestrian is recovering in hospital with serious head injuries after being struck by a minivan in Vancouver. It happened just after 3 o'clock yesterday afternoon on Oak Street near West 15th Avenue. The man's injuries are not believed to be life-threatening. The driver remained at the scene and is cooperating with officers. Oak Street was shut down for several hours while police investigated. It's being called the worst case of mass murder in Edmonton's history. The city's police chief says the deaths of 9 people was the result of a planned and deliberate act of domestic violence. A woman was shot dead in a home in South Edmonton yesterday, while 2 men, 3 women, a girl and a boy were found dead a few hours later at another house. The 9th body was found inside of a restaurant, and it matches the description of a man reported to be depressed and suicidal. It's believed he killed the 8 victims before taking his own life. He was well known to police and had a lengthy criminal record. The gun believed to have been used in this crime was reportedly stolen from Surrey.
Once access was gained, our officers confirmed that there were 7 deceased individuals within the residence. These murders were described by investigators as appearing to be planned and deliberate.
The wreckage of Air Asia Flight 8501 has now been located at the bottom of the Java Sea off the coast of Indonesia, and the first 2 bodies have now arrived on land for identification. The bodies were airlifted in and given a solemn welcome by military personnel on the tarmac. A hospital is being used to hold and identify the passengers recovered from the sea. Meanwhile, the search for the wreckage and victims has been halted because of poor weather conditions. Only 7 bodies have been recovered so far. 162 people were on board the plane. A healthcare worker in Kelowna is in isolation after being tested for the Ebola virus. Patrice Gordon recently came back from working for the Canadian Red Cross in Sierra Leone and started to show some Ebola-like symptoms. Early results for their nurse practitioner have come back negative for Ebola. Provincial health officers say there's very little risk to the public and she's most likely suffering from the flu. There are currently 7 people in BC being monitored for Ebola following trips to West Africa. Health experts are warning this year's flu shot is not a good match for the strain that's currently going around. Across Canada, emergency rooms have been flooded with people showing flu-like symptoms, but many of them have had the vaccination. The H3N2 strain tends to cause more serious symptoms, especially in the elderly. We're still advised to get the flu shot as it will provide protection from other strains.
The WHO had to choose the vaccine strains many months ago, back in February. And over the course of the intervening period, the circulating H3N2 virus picked up additional mutations. So now it's mismatched to the vaccine.
The good news is the flu season is soon coming to an end. It should fizzle out in the next couple of weeks. Court documents have renewed questions about 3 lawsuits filed against former Vanox CEO John Furlong last year. Recently filed papers now indicate one of the plaintiffs may have been at a different school in another community at the time of the alleged abuse. Plaintiff Beverly Abraham also withdrew her lawsuit earlier this month. There are also said to be doubts about whether another plaintiff, a third one actually, attended the school in question. Avalanche warnings have now been renewed for anyone venturing into the backcountry over the next week. Forecasters predict there's a high risk of dangerous slides. Avalanche Canada issued a special public avalanche warning on Christmas Day that applied to most of inland BC. It's now been expanded to include the Whistler and Pemberton areas. The warning is expected to remain in effect until at least Sunday.